As the arrival of Kang the Conqueror gets closer and closer to the big screen, fan excitement continues to grow in anticipation. We recently received confirmation that the first Kang variant we'll see on the big screen is known as Warrior Kang, and for a full breakdown of this version, be sure to check out our video dissecting Jonathan Major's physical transformation, as well as his quotes on this version of the Conqueror. While many fans are ecstatic to see this version, he is far from the only iteration of the Warlord that is set to appear. So which version of Kang from the comics are most likely to make appearances in the near future in the MCU? Which of his variants can most likely be expected to see within the next couple of years before the multiversal saga finally concludes? Well, stick with us today, watchers of the Marvel Multiverse, and let's discuss some of Kang's most popular variants and assess where and when we might see them in their MCU debuts. The first variant to discuss is actually not a villainous version of the Warlord, but might actually be an invaluable asset to the Avengers in defeating Kang. While the title of Iron Lad has long been speculated to be passed down to Harley Keener, the original moniker was held by a version of none other than Nathaniel Richards, who actually has ties to He Who Remains. He Who Remains was largely inspired by the variant known as Immortus, and in the original source material, Immortus' childhood was spent trying to deviate from his villainous destiny, breaking free from the life of tyranny, and becoming a hero. After learning that he was supposed to become a villain, he decided to alter his destiny and join the forces of good, taking after the ancient hero known as Iron Man and traversing the timeline seeking to aid those in need. His inclusion in the MCU as a sympathetic variant, who actually is a part of the Avengers side, could be a compelling character arc for a young Nathaniel Richards. This could also serve as Iron Lad's character development more thoroughly than it would be with Harley Keener, seeing as this variant of Iron Lad would have a sense of duty, responsibility, as well as moral baggage that comes with being a variant of the greatest known threat to the multiverse. This could make for a compelling character arc, as this version of Nathaniel Richards routinely sees himself in Kang and his conquests, and fears that he may be doomed to grow into this very same tyrant, as he quite literally is the most dangerous and pertinent threat to the safety of the entire multiverse. A story like this would, in theory, make for an incredibly compelling arc and a worthy successor to the Iron Man mantle without overshadowing or attempting to replace Tony Stark. A story like this would mirror Tony Stark's battle against his own inner demons, except instead of Tony confronting his past, Reed Richards would confront his future. And since the story of Far From Home centered around Peter Parker realizing that he would never be the next Iron Man, Peter could grow into a fully developed adult Spider-Man following No Way Home. If Peter Parker, Riri Williams, and whichever version of Iron Lad debuts could exist in harmony, then Kang himself could grow into just as valuable of an asset as he could be an adversary to the Avengers team. There is also a distinct possibility that in the MCU, Iron Lad is the past version of He Who Remains, the final Kang who is destined to ultimately destroy the multiverse. This would make the final conflict against He Who Remains even more heartfelt, as we learn that he is the future hero of the beloved variant who has come to aid the Avengers, who again, unfortunately, ultimately became a villain and a tyrant. The next variant to discuss may have already made his debut in the modern MCU, and could potentially be living in the mainline universe as we speak. We are referring to the variant by the name of Mr. Griffin, who became trapped in the early 21st century after a glitch in the time stream. Here, he established an enterprise known as Kang Industries, a highly lucrative company that even ended up buying Stark Tower near the turn of the century. As of right now in the MCU, we still do not know who bought Stark Tower, and it's entirely possible that Mr. Griffin is living this timeline and somewhere right now, which is supported by the Disney Plus Loki series. When Loki and Sylvie arrive at the Void at the end of time, there is a conspicuous tower in the background, which seems to very closely resemble the original Avengers facility. What's interesting to note here, though, is that the Kang logo can be made out, indicating that if this tower comes from the mainline universe, then Kang the Conqueror might already be living among the modern Avengers, biding his time until he will eventually make his move, or be revealed as a conqueror. Next, let's discuss the variant known as Rama Tut, who ruled over the kingdom of ancient Egypt as a renowned pharaoh for several decades. While the MCU does not take place in the same time period as Rama Tut's rule, there are several ties to the modern day that might indicate one of Kang's most notorious variants might at least be mentioned. One possibility is that Khonshu himself encountered this particular variant of Kang at some point in the distant past, and might be able to give the Moon Knight system insight on how to battle this time-hopping conqueror. We actually have already conducted a breakdown on why Kang and Khonshu hate one another, so be sure to check out that video as well for more in-depth breakdown of this storyline from the comics. It's also entirely possible that some members of the primary timeline will venture back into ancient Egypt, much like how the Fantastic Four did in Fantastic Four number 19, wherein they found themselves in ancient Egypt during the height of Kang's regime. Here, they chased him back into the future, and if this storyline is adapted for the MCU's iteration of the Fantastic Four, then we might see them face this particular version of the Conqueror, perhaps even with the help of Moon Knight. The final variant we'll be discussing today might have ties to the upcoming third entry in the Ant-Man series, that of course being Quantumania. While Warrior Kang will be the primary antagonist, there might be ties to an alias known as Victor Timely, a version of Kang who lived out much of his life in the early 20th century as a genius inventor and entrepreneur. Confined to a small town in Wisconsin, this version of Kang posed as his own family line and founded a robotics corporation far ahead of its time. What makes this version of Kang compelling and ties him to the third Ant-Man film is the association with Chronopolis, a city-structured time nexus. Chronopolis exists at the intersection of time, allowing anyone within the city to access any point in the time whenever they wish. And it has been long believed that Chronopolis will be adapted into live action when Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania debuts early next year. The Quantum City that we see is primarily inspired by Chronopolis according to various rumors, and if this is to be believed, then we might see a version of Kang inherit this kingdom and run his empire from the quantum realm. After all, we already know that the quantum realm gives those who have the ability the proper streams to traverse the timeline. This could allow a version of Kang easy access to anywhere in the multiverse that he pleases, and if we see a variant of Kang run Chronopolis, there is a distinct possibility that he'll take inspiration from Victor Timely. But anyway, my friends, which versions of Kang do you think that we'll see in the MCU? Which variants are you most looking forward to, and which of these do you think have already appeared in the MCU in the background? And of course, which of all of them is the greatest threat to the Avengers? As always, my friends, hit that subscribe button to assemble and join our team, and have a great day.